But let's start with the significant news coming out of Everton. They've sacked Sean Dyche after a run of just one win from their last 11 games, which has left them just a point above the Premier League relegation zone. Let's go back to Goodison Park, back to Vinny O'Connor. Vinny, very good evening. So he's gone. What have the club had to say about it?
I think we always thought it was coming once we knew that the owners were looking at the situation after the defeat to Bournemouth, Mike. And on top of that, we knew as well that they'd been speaking to potential replacements, notably in Graham Potter as well. What we probably didn't expect was for it to be so close to kick-off before Everton eventually announced that they were going to be changing their manager. But that confirmation did come around about half an hour ago as well. In that statement, they said Everton Football Club can confirm that Sean Dyche has been relieved of his duties as senior men's first team manager with immediate effect. Ian Woan, Steve Stone, Mark Howard and Billy Mercer have also left the club. The process to appoint a new manager is now underway, and an update will be provided in due course. Under 18s head coach Leighton Baines and club captain Seamus Coleman will take charge of first team affairs on an interim basis. So don't forget as well, Sean Dyche also took Everton training this morning ahead of this cup tie against Peterborough United, and also did his usual pre-match news conference as well, where he was questioned quite openly and rigorously really about his future and what exactly the situation was in terms of the ownership at that point, and what they'd said to him with that news coming out that they were looking at his situation and debating whether or not to change the manager. But now they've ultimately taken that decision, and it has been confirmed by Everton that Sean Dyche leaves his position as the Everton manager.
Vinny, I note in that statement they don't thank Sean Dyche at all, which I think is probably significant. But what do you make of the timing, given that there's a game in just a few hours?
Yeah, I think it's just dragged on after that defeat to Bournemouth. You mentioned the run of results that Everton are on at the moment, Mike. Just one win in 11 Premier League games, which leaves them a point above the drop zone at the moment in 16th place. They really have been dragged back into that relegation battle. They had been positive results, I suppose, when you look at the draws against Chelsea, Manchester City and Arsenal. The 4-0 victory over Wolves as well. But ultimately, Everton just don't carry a goal threat. They failed to score in 8 of those 11 games. I keep banging on about the lack of productivity up top as well. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, just 2 goals, 15 games without a goal now. When Dwight McNeil's not in the side, and he won't be again tonight through that knee injury, he's got 3 goals, 3 assists this season. But though the wide players generally don't provide assists either. You look at Illiman and Dye, 3 goals but no assists. Jack Harrison, Jesper Lindstrom, no goals, no assists from either of them. And then through the middle, Abdoulaye Doucouré playing in that more forward midfield role at the moment, no goals, no assists. And when you're looking at how you can get the best out of a group of players in terms of an attacking threat, then it's arguable that Sean Dyche has not been able to do that. I think he should also be thanked, though, when you look at what happened last season and all that he had to deal with off-the-field matters, with the takeover pending and takeovers falling through, and of course the punishment, the 8-point deduction for PSR breaches as well. And yet Everton finished on 40 points. It would have been 48 without those points deductions as well. And the previous season, of course, staying up on the final day with that victory here at Goodison Park against Bournemouth. But ultimately, this season, certainly from an Evertonian point of view, the results have not been good enough. They've carried little goal threat and they've not been entertained.
Yeah, you said he should be thanked, Vinny. Let's just reiterate, he wasn't. OK, who's likely to come in?
There's a long list at the moment, and I think one we can possibly rule out towards the top of that list at the moment is Jose Mourinho. Certainly, our understanding is that there's been no contact between Everton and Jose Mourinho either, and I just don't think that would necessarily be the fit for Everton just now. One name that clearly stands out because of his history with Everton Football Club is David Moyes. Now, I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and his attitude then was that he doesn't really see himself in a position where he needs to take on a club that's fighting a relegation battle. It'd be much more looking at a project where they're challenging for Europe, something like that. His track record, certainly what he achieved at West Ham and what he achieved here at Everton Football Club, I suppose as well, would see him a good fit for a club in that kind of position. At the same time, of course, Everton Football Club means a lot to David Moyes, and therefore if an offer were to come in, then it might be a difficult one for him to turn down at this stage as well. On top of that, another name being linked is Lee Carsley, and there's also talk that maybe if David Moyes were to get the job, then Lee Carsley could come in as his assistant as well. Another name in the frame, Paulo Fonseca. He's obviously worked with Everton's owners at Roma as well, ultimately losing his job as Jose Mourinho lost his job under Everton's owners as well, at Roma as well. But in the meantime, of course, we know that Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman are in interim charge. I suppose depending on how long they get to take to prove themselves as well, and how far can they go on an interim basis, and then maybe a more permanent basis where they to prove themselves with results. But certainly big names in the frame. I think at the moment, looking at that list, David Moyes is one that particularly stands out though.
Vinny O'Connor, live from Goodison. Thanks, Vinny. We'll be back to you in no time at all, no doubt. Thank you. Right, let's bring it back in here. What do you make of the news? First you, Michael.
I think it was bubbling along. You can sense it with Everton fans I've been speaking to over the last few days that this potentially could happen. I think the surprise, Mike, is the timing. They've got a game in a few hours' time. However, in terms of the decision, doesn't surprise me at all, really.
What do you make of the timing, Mark?
It's not great before a game. You get the feeling that these decisions, as we've seen with West Ham, get made maybe 24, 48 hours in advance of them actually being actioned. And then it goes to the lawyers and the solicitors and the people that make the big money decisions to make sure that they get things in place with regards to a legal perspective. So maybe that's where things have happened. And with the world of social media, things often come out before they're ready to come out. And that's often the case. In football, normally what happens is, he'll get sacked. Sean Dyche will be told, thanks very much. His backroom team will get told. The players will get told. And before you know it, there's 50 or 60 people that know the information, and they'll tell 2 or 3 or 4 of their friends. So within minutes, you can have hundreds of people that know something that actually not many people are supposed to know. I'm surprised in a way because Sean Dyche has been the figurehead for that football club over the last year and a half or so, 2 years, where things have not been good. He's had to deal with questions every single week about points deductions, about owners, about PSR, about people coming in and going, and he's had to front it up. And that's not easy. He's kept the side in the Premier League when they've had several points deductions. He's kept the side going when they've not been able to sign players. The players that they have are worried about the future. They're worried about whether they're going to get paid. They're worried about what's going on, the style of football. The fans haven't been happy, and they're passionate, caring fans. But that man has kept the ship moving in the right direction. And it would have been so easy for them to get relegated and disappear into the Championship and find themselves in a real problem.
You've mentioned the R word. This football club cannot get relegated. They're just about to enter their new, exciting stadium. They're talking about test events. And then who are they going to play in August? It's frightening. The new owners bought this football club they're a Premier League club. They're a big Premier League club. But things are not going well at the moment. But what does Sean Dyche do? He usually keeps people up. He got Burnley in Europe one year, for goodness sake. However, there's obviously something not right. The timing isn't right. Or are they considering a new manager at the moment? These are quite active owners, aren't they? We've seen that from their time at Roma.
Well, let's consider some owners then. Vinny gave us a list. Who do you think might get the job?
Well, a source has told me that there's talk. Of course, we're a transfer show at the end of the day, so let's go on to maybe the transfer side of it.
Go on.
Everton aren't scoring any goals. They need some firepower. They're not getting that at the moment. There is talk from some sources that they might look at a manager out of work, and the money they have this January will be focused on a player. Let's face it, any manager they could get in a job now, you take the manager, you take the assistant, you take the head coach, all your coaches, all you want, you're coming up to 15, 20 million pounds if you want one of the top ones. Let's have a look who's out of work. David Moyes?
Someone that knows Seamus Coleman, someone that knows Leighton Baines, someone that understands the intricacies of that football club and understands what it takes to keep a side in the Premier League.
David Moyes. What I'd also say as well, as Vinny rightly said, David Moyes sees himself looking to be with a club around the European football. And yeah, he's earned that. He won a European trophy for West Ham United. However, these jobs don't come along that often. And a lot of the time, owners who aren't UK-based look at owners abroad. So look at Graham Potter. He had to wait quite a bit of time. He turned down jobs. Obviously, Ajax and other big clubs as well. He's back in football. But you get forgotten about soon. I do wonder if David Moyes might say, OK, look, I don't want to be in a relegation battle, but I love that football club, so I'm going to make an exception.
Do the Everton fans love David Moyes?
I think what he did before was exceptional. We'll come back to that. What he did with Everton was he turned them from being a really good, solid Premier League club into a team that used to punch and become a constant thorn in the side of the big four at the time. He got, as Michael said, Everton into the Champions League. They were constantly up there, not just one season, but season after season, they would be in and around the top 5 or 6. And he created that on a low budget with signing good quality players and playing, let's say, a pragmatic style of football. So he understands what that club is about, and he understands working on a lower budget and getting a side to punch above their weight. Now, there's a lot of talk about Everton's recent results. They're not as bad as people might suggest. They've kept 7 clean sheets in their last 13 games. Defensively, Sean Dyche had them nice and solid. So a manager's coming in, not to like a team like Southampton where they concede a lot of goals, and that's a big issue for them. Defensively, they're nice and solid. So David Moyes, if he were to be the new Everton manager, he'd say, right, defensively, you're actually quite good. The one problem that we've got to solve is the lack of goals. Only 15 in the Premier League this season. That's the 19th in the table. Only Southampton have scored fewer goals. That's where the big problem is. And that's what Everton fans will say. We want a manager who can make it exciting to watch our club again.